I hope you're well. This topic was requested by a friend of mine called Fiona. I'm hoping she doesn't mind me mentioning her name, who I met through Foden's Youth. And the topic that was suggested was feeling guilty about not practising and how to deal with that. And you know, there's so much pressure on us to keep our lip in, and this is a topic that I think has affected all of us at some point, I think, or definitely most of us at some point during this whole COVID fiasco. And I thought, rather than just writing a blog post, I thought we would make a brew and we'd sit down together and we'd have a chat about it. So pause this video, go and grab yourself a brew, and let's talk about feeling guilty about not practising. I will be the first to admit that right at the beginning of the lockdown, I tried my best to keep myself motivated, because I went from practising every week to having nothing to practice for. And that was a big demotivator for me, of having nothing to work towards, and also it being completely open-ended, not knowing when we would ever be able to turn back to band. And that was frustrating for me. But I ploughed on, I carried on practising things that I'd not practised in a while. I'm lucky to have friends that have got access to a lot of music that they were sending to me, so I could, you know, keep my hand in the game and keep myself interested. I did a guide for the British bandsmen of keeping ourselves motivated and practising during lockdown, and I was full of optimism. And then the lockdown went on, and the lockdown went on, and I'll admit, my cornet has not been out of its case as much as I would like it to. And I was ashamed of that, and I was guilt-ridden over it, and I did suffer with practice guilt quite a bit, because I felt that I should have been practising every day, and the fact that I didn't want to practice every day anymore, that was a big red flag to me. The reason why I think it was such a big red flag was when I was struggling with my mental health, and I was kind of contemplating coming out full-time banding for a bit. One of the biggest factors that made me realise that I wasn't quite as in love with banding as I used to be at the time was practising just wasn't something I wanted to do. You know, a lot of the time I would walk into my living room, my corner would be there, and I wanted to pick it up and practice it, and sort of as time went on I didn't want to do that, and then ended up leaving banding for a bit. And then obviously it wears you down. This entire scenario has been frightening, and I think, I don't know, for me personally it started to become painful, because although I love playing, it kind of reminded me of what I can't do at the moment, and it was kind of a vicious circle as my lip was getting a bit weaker because I wasn't practising as often. I was getting more and more frustrated, and my rehearsals were getting more and more negative. And why would you want to be a part of that? Why would you want to do something that you know you're going to be shouting at yourself for? So I didn't, and I have felt guilty, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about, so I'm glad Fiona brought it up. I don't feel guilty anymore. At the end of the day, we're not in normal circumstances. Yes, if I was playing with a band and we had stuff to do, yeah, I would be, you know, kicking myself up the backside if I wasn't practising as much as I should. But at the moment, I'm stressed about all the other things that are going on in life. And it's just not that I don't ever want to pick my instrument up again. I love my band, I love my playing. It's just not on my priority list at the moment. So I think making myself practice in order to avoid guilt, to then shout at myself for not being good enough, for me is not necessarily the way to go. Now, I'm not a professional. You know, I'm not a teacher, but I am a player, and I do have, you know, a lot of experience in mental health because I have a mental illness. So I'm more than happy to give my advice. My advice is to not put the pressure on yourself in the first place. At the end of the day, let's call a spade a spade. We've got nothing to practice for, or maybe you've got like the online championships. Okay, we'll deal with that in a minute. But if you've got nothing to practice for with your band, there's no pressure. You are literally just playing for enjoyment. So, if you feel that you want to, go and do it. But I don't think there's much point in putting pressure or guilt on yourself at the moment, because you are going through enough. And if it means your instrument goes on the back burner for a little bit in order for you to keep your head above water, you keep your head above water. And you practice when you want to. If you kind of feel not practicing is going to put more stress on you, which is valid, you know, if you have got projects coming up with your band, or you're the type of person that if you get so out of shape it's going to affect you negatively mentally, then my advice to you would be little or nothing. You know, don't power into 2 hours of practice if that's something that you know is going to be a chore for you. Start off with 15 minutes and do 15 minutes of a piece, or 15 minutes of exercises, or just 15 minutes of something, or even just a piece that you enjoy playing purely for enjoyment. I would recommend just doing a little bit And then build it up. If you enjoyed that 15 minutes, maybe do another 15 minutes later on in the day. Or 15 minutes whenever you feel like it. Or as you do a bit more, if you feel that 15 minutes isn't enough, then increase it. But at no point put pressure on yourself is my advice. Because I think it builds a negative association with the instrument and with practice. It doesn't make us feel good, and as human beings, we're creatures of habit, and if something doesn't make us feel good, it takes more motivation for us to do it, and that music shouldn't be that. Going to the gym, that's a mentality for the gym or exercising. We don't enjoy it, but it's good for us, so we go and do it. Music is to be enjoyed. It is not losing weight or going to the gym or doing exercise. You should be wanting to do it rather than feeling that you have to do it. And I think forcing yourself by saying I have to practice can kind of make us feel negative about it. It's almost like, you know, when you do New Year's resolutions and you say I have to achieve this thing this year, and then you don't. I've noticed that with me. Like, if I set a New Year's resolution and I go I have to achieve this by the end of the year, I tend not to do it. I don't think I've ever hit a resolution, to be fair. Whereas this year, the way that I wrote my New Year's resolutions was I want to do this thing. Rather than I have to do it, this is something I want to do. It doesn't put any pressure on me. I'm not saying that I have to do it, but the fact that I've said I want to do it has given me that motivation to fulfil that goal, because it's something that I want rather than something that I need to do. And similarly, I'm looking at my cornet that way. I look at my cornet and go, I want to practice today, and I do it. And because I've not put that strain on me, I enjoy it rather than going, ugh, I've got to practice. You know, we end up looking at it as something that's negative, like going to the gym. We have to go to the gym, or we have to go for a run. It ends up becoming that kind of mentality. So another thing I would suggest would just think of it positively. Is it something that you want to do? If it's something you don't want to do and you want to do something else, go and do something else at this point in time. Because I'm not being funny, we're all going to be out of shape by the time we come back, because none of us know when that day is. So how can we prepare for a day that we don't know? Now, you probably think it's weird that I am promoting not practising. I'm not promoting not practising, I'm promoting looking after yourself. And that is important, because if you don't look after yourself, you won't be coming back to band. It's as simple as that. You'll be so burnt out and tired and worried and upset and whatever that you probably don't want to come back to band. And if you keep forcing these negative feelings on your instrument, on your daily practice, it's going to be creating these negative associations with banding, with music, which we don't want. I don't want you to have that. I don't want to feel like that. I want all of my associations with music and practice and band to be positive. And I think this is where the banding world needs to change. Times have changed. We've moved on from that mentality of pushing ourselves too hard because it leads to burnout. Yes, be disciplined. Yes, do the best that you can. But I think pushing ourselves to burnout point ends up causing us to leave and not wanting to do that thing. Whereas approaching it with an open mind and going, I want to be better, or I want to practice, or I want to do this rather than I have to, is a better way in general of approaching practice. Also think about, why do you want to practice? Is it to help with stress? If you know you don't practice and you know that your lip's going to get weaker, is that going to play with your mental health? If there's a piece that you know has been sitting on the side and you've not touched it yet, but you do want to learn it, let that be your motivation. If there's a particular skill that you admire another player for, and you think, oh, I've always wanted to play blah-de-blah like that, or play like that person, then let that be your motivation. You want to do something, so in order to fulfil that want, you have to do a bit of practice, and maybe use that as your motivation. And it's all intuitive. You've got to listen to yourself and you will know. I'm not in for this hard slog mentality anymore, because that is what caused me to leave banding the first time, and I don't want to feel like that about my playing ever again. I want my playing to be a source of joy and enjoyment, as it should be. At the end of the day, if this has made you sit up and think, I don't want to go to band every week, I don't want to talk anybody out of banding, but we're people as well, and I'd rather you be mentally healthy than forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do. So to summarise, practice guilt is normal, because we're normally, especially this time of year with the area, you know, we're so used to being so busy and used to practising all the time, so not having that motivation, you know, it's easy to beat ourselves up over it. God knows I have. It's so easy to beat ourselves up, and don't do it. At the end of the day, you're coping in a pandemic. This is not a normal scenario. In normal scenarios, yeah, fair enough, put a little bit of pressure on. But this isn't a normal scenario, and there is enough to think about, and I'd rather you just come back to band than you end up dropping out of band because you've started negatively associating with your instrument and with your band. And at the end of the day, banding is your hobby. Music is your hobby, and it's to be enjoyed. If at the moment it's not bringing you joy, maybe practising is maybe making you miss band, or maybe it's adding more pressure to stress that you already have, or whatever the reason might be, or maybe there's something else that you've discovered at the moment that makes you feel more relaxed and happy than practising does, and you want to devote a bit of time to that. That's fine. I've been doing a lot of artwork recently because that at the moment is bringing me more stress relief than playing does, and that's fine, and I'm not getting angry with myself over it because I trust myself. When the time is right, I'll get back on it again. And if your instrument gets abandoned for a little bit because that helps you keep your chin above the water, do it. Do it, because it means we're not going to lose you. Because we don't want to lose you. We don't want you dropping out of the community, we don't want you being ill, and we don't want you feeling bad. So leave it and do something else. If you feel stressed and you want to do practice but you don't know how to get sort of back on the bandwagon, little and often, include things that you enjoy in your practice regime, measure it, measure what you're doing in your practice so you can actually see your progress, because if you don't see your progress, that's when we tend to be demotivated. Something that you can track, whether it's learning new skills, learning new pieces, what have you actually, or just writing down in bullet points, what did you achieve in that practice session and what can you do better next time. Do what you need to do is what I'm saying. Practice guilt, there's no room for it here. I'm banning it, okay? I am banning practice guilt. If you're feeling guilty for not practising your instrument, you're not allowed to, I said so. Do whatever you need to do to keep your head in a healthy space. That's all that anybody can ask of you. So I'm banning practice guilt, okay? It's no longer a thing. It doesn't exist. You do what you need to do. And if anybody puts pressure on you or makes you feel guilty, please feel free to refer them to me, because they won't be doing it again, okay? Please, 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 look after yourself, my lovelies. It won't be long. There is a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. And at the end of the day, if you've not picked your cornet or whatever instrument you play up this week to practice for nothing, because there's nothing to do, don't stress about it. And if you have, well done, that's brilliant. And if you've not, well done, you made a healthy decision for you. But at the moment, I am banning practice guilt. It doesn't exist. I hope that this has been helpful, or at least entertaining. Okay, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are enjoying my content, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell so you get notified every time I create a new video. If you want more brass band content, you can find it at itsnotatrumpet.com, where you will find my videos, you will find all of my blog posts. It is the brass band blog, created by a brass band geek, so if you want anything to do with brass bands, go to itsnotatrumpet.com. But for now, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.